Good. So we're recording and we are going back to Revelation 17. Now I'm continuing from where we kind of ended last week on Revelation 17. We spoke about, I think it was verse 5. Now, today was a long day preparing because it's so much information and I'm just scratching the surface. So we're going to spend a bit of time looking at this verse 4 to 6. It talks about the woman on the beast, and we spoke already, we said a lot about her. But I want to go into more detail, the mystery of Babylon, and look at the mother of the prostitutes and of earth's abominations, verse 5. But obviously, let me quickly see if I can share my screen. I didn't make new slides, but I've got photos I want to show. So I'm going to jump between screens tonight. And hopefully I can multitask. Hopefully. Okay, so maybe let's just read verse 4 to 6 again, just to refresh our minds, and then we can continue. It says in verse 4, the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet and adorned with gold and jewels and pearls, holding in her hand a golden cup. We're going to talk about that, and I've actually ended tonight. The Bible study will just say a little bit about that. Full of abominations and impurities of the sexual immorality. Verse 5, and on her forehead was written a name of mystery, Babylon, the great mother of prostitutes and of earth's abominations. And I saw the woman drunk with the blood of the saints, the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. Now, let me say this maybe from the start, that this might be a little bit sensitive, this discussion. If there are children, I would say young children, please don't let them, obviously I don't know how far you allow them to listen, because we're not going to talk about things that obviously happened in history, and it's PG rated, I can say. PG, parental guidance. Okay, so let's go back, verse 5. It talks about Babylon, the great mother of prostitutes and of the earth's abomination. Let's talk about that. And I think we ended there last week. It's written on a forehead, and I did mention that although Saddam Hussein tried to rebuild the city, and he thought he was the reincarnation of Nebuchadnezzar, and he wanted to destroy Jerusalem and take the Jews captive again into Babylon, kind of repeat history. Obviously, he was delusional, I would say. But although I think, and as we saw in the previous verses, that the earthquake will split the city in three parts, and it will be destroyed. I do think it's a literal city, although it might not be called Babylon, but it will all have all the characteristics of Rome, the revived empire, and we looked at that last week. So. And also the women riding on the beast, what we said is it refers probably to religion, the union between state and religion. The king and the priest, obviously it was a common thing in the time of Babylon, where pagan priests, sorcerers, magicians, and all those things were close advisors for the king, but they kind of had a very big influence in controlling the empire by their advice and how they controlled the king. So, and I think this is the picture that we have, that the mystery of the name of Babylon, what it means is that she will be in bed with both the secular government and with the spiritual entities or religion, and she will have an adulterous relationship with politics and religion. And I think that's the main broad idea of the woman riding on the beast representing the Antichrist and the political system of the Antichrist, and the heads and the crowns representing the kings, the 10 toes. We spoke about that last week, and then this unity of church and state existed during the days of Babylon, and again that is what's going to happen in this time, Revelation 17, in the future, in the tribulation period. So if the question I was going to ask myself is, if there is going to be this unity again between church and state, like a state religion, what can we expect is going to happen now, leading on towards that that point in time where it's going to happen? What do you think is, what can we expect? What do you guys think? Welcome, Maria. Ek bly jy is hier, Maria, because we're going to talk about the Catholics a lot, so you're going to help me tonight. So what do you guys think will happen now, and leading forward to that kind of situation? John?
I think I would almost say it's pretty obvious what is happening right now.
Yeah.
And that is that Christianity in particular, Judaism as well, but Christianity in particular, is now being marginalized. And we as believers are almost becoming second-class citizens.
Oh, wow.
And until such time as we combine with these people who want to have a one-world religion where everybody loves everybody and nobody has any regard for God, it's going to increase in speed.
Yeah.
This dilution of the Christian and the removal of Christians and God as we approach.
No, I completely agree with you, because that is what happened during the Roman Empire and the early church, the Christian church. They were persecuted, and they did not have the right to be a citizen, or the right to be a citizen of the Roman Empire because of their religion. And you're going to be forced to accept this one world religion thing in order to be part of this one world structure. I don't know. Greg, you have your hand up. Can't hear you.
I can already see that they've started. I mean, when I was in primary school, we used to start the school day by reciting the Lord's Prayer. Then they removed that. And in high school, we still had Bible instruction as a subject, and now they've removed that out of the school syllabus as well. And now they're trying to eradicate anything Christian out of the school syllabus as well as we went to the school's year-end function where it was like the Christmas play type of thing, and they didn't have any religious songs about Noel, and like that kind of thing. They had all this Father Christmas song type of things in the play. So they're moving it over to something else instead of what it really is. So they're trying, like John said, they're diluting the Christian faith and eradicating it out of any kind of educational system. And then from there, it'll probably start going into society as well, and trying to push aside the Christians and have them as the lepers and outcasts, and disassociate yourself from there. And then it will move into what the Muslim heretics, not heretics, the fanatics are doing, where they're starting to martyr the Christians as well. That's my
No,
feeling
thank you for
about it.
sharing that. Cynthia, you also wanted to say something?
Oh, recently.
Or Alan?
Yeah, really, I think we're seeing a lot of a foretaste of the stuff in Revelation, with things like the United Nations and the World Health Organization and the European Union, and a lot of the thinking around religious concepts is being driven by these kind of global organizations that have to be all encompassing and all all accepting.
Yeah. No, that's
so
true.
that's my thought.
Yeah. No, that's true. I think we all think, if we think 10 years ago and today, we can see this. I see the speed of how things are just changing, and we shouldn't be surprised. I think that's the thing that comes to my mind. We shouldn't go, oh no, what's this? We shouldn't be surprised that all of this is going to happen when it happens, and just wonder and be astonished what's going on. I think we should have expected. So what I think is the government will be more and more will interfere and into the church matters, into the church affairs, and they will tell us, and I think they are already at this stage. They will tell us what we can and what we cannot preach. And we see that in the world today, where you cannot stand on a pulpit and talk against homosexuality and things like that. So yes, it's going to move into that direction, and they will tell us who we can marry. We already see that happening, and many pastors in the Baptist Union are giving up their marriage license because of this, because they don't want to be in a trouble because they refuse to marry a gay couple. So, and I think that's the kind of, it's going to be slowly become more and more interference in what the church does. And they will also tell how the church should exercise their faith, etc., etc. So this is kind of the things that we can expect. So it's good to well, in the one sense, we don't fear when we see this happen. When we see this happen, we look up and know our redemption is near and that the coming of the Lord is close. So that's the outlook that we have as believers. So I want to talk about the mother of prostitutes, where it says in verse 5, and on her forehead was written the name of Mystery Babylon the Great, mother of prostitutes. Now, I'm going to go a little bit into, and I read a lot on church history, and I used mostly Dave Hunt, who wrote a book, Women Writes the Beast. He's got so much information in there. I think it should be available on Kindle. If you want to read that, it's very, very cumbersome, very in detail, a lot about the history of especially the Roman Catholic Church. So he goes into that. And I'm going to use a lot of his information tonight, but I want to talk about the mother of prostitutes. So the priesthood, basically, of the Roman Catholic Church. I don't know if you ever knew this, but the priesthood of the majority of most of the priests were sons of other priests or bishops, meaning they were largely hereditary. And I found it very interesting. And let me give you just some detail. Pope Silverius from 536 to 537 was the father of Pope Hormidas and John the Sixth in 931 to 5, and by Sergius the Third 904, and you kind of see this thing that there's kind of this royal family thing also going on among the and Dave Hunt says it. That's why I said it's a little bit PG. He calls them bastards. He says among other bastards who ruled the church were Pope Boniface in 418, Galatius 492, Agapetus from 535, and Theodore. So he gives a lot of names. But the thing that I want to point out is, when you hear this, when you see that this was the son of this and this was the son of this, they were all priests and posts and bishops. What is the problem with that? I wonder if you can spot the issue. I want you to think if you can see what the problem is with that whole thing of the father and the son and the next son and the next son being the Pope and the priest. Who can spot it? Greg.
Bev says that they were supposed to be celibate and not have kids if you marry.
That's it. That's the first thing I want you to see. How did they get sons if they were supposed to be celibate, where they swore an oath to be celibate? Where did their sons come from? Okay, if they never got married. No wonder Pope Pius II said Rome was the only city run by bastards. That's what Pope Pius said himself. And Pius himself had 2 children with 2 different women outside of marriage. Now Dave Hunt says that this literally created prostitutes, making Rome the mother of harlots. So he's going into a lot of detail to show you that he believes this woman that writes the beast represent the system of Catholicism, and that she was the mother of harlots. And he goes into so much detail. So I'm going to give you some of it. He says in Florence, Italy, there was a priest, and I looked up this on Wikipedia, obviously fact-checking as well and things like that. So I've got some photos I can share. Let me see if I can put it on. No, I don't. No, I don't have that guy's, that one's photo. Okay, so I don't have that Pope's photo. His name was Girolamo Savonarola. I don't know if I pronounce it right. I'll put it in the chat. If you want to go and Google it, you can Google it. There's the name, Girolamo Savonarola. I don't know if I pronounce it right. Okay, that was between 1452 and 1498. Now, what is interesting is this guy preached against, he went against the wickedness of his time. He spoke against the Pope, Pope Alexander VI. His name was Rodrigo Borgia, and he called Rome a harlot ready to sell her favors for coin. And also said the priests are bringing spiritual death upon all. Their piety consists in spending their nights with harlots. And he also said 1,000, 10,000, 14,000 harlots are few for Rome, for there both men and women are made harlots. Interesting that a priest would see the problem and he would speak against it. By the way, it got him hanged, he and 2 of his friends. They got hanged by the Pope, by the Roman Catholic Church. And although he was hanged by the Roman Catholic Church, he is today remembered by the Vatican as a giant of faith, martyred on 23 March 1498. So the Roman Catholic Church, the Vatican sees him as this giant man of faith, but they're the ones that killed him. So interesting. Now, in the 18th century, Saint Boniface found that there were no clergy that kept their vows of celibacy. Okay, and this is an ongoing problem that you see right through the church history of the Roman Catholic Church. And he wrote to the Pope of Zachary, and he said the following. He said, young men who spent their youth in rape and adultery were rising in the ranks of the clergy. They were spending their nights in bed with 4 or 5 women, then getting up in the morning to celebrate Mass. And I see, if you follow the news, you see that it's an ongoing thing still today, and it's just a system of prostitution. In the 13th century, Saint Bonaventure, Cardinal and General of the Franciscans, yes, said that Rome was the harlot of the apocalypse. So even Saint Bonaventure saw that. He saw that this might be even what John is referring to in Revelation. And the common saying for the years, and that's why if you read the Reformation and you see Martin Luther and you see the Reformed, the Protestant, the early Protestants, that the Reformers, they viewed Roman Catholicism and the Roman Catholic Church as the harlot, as the prostitute that rides the beast. That's how they saw it. Now, I know the more as Protestants moved on through the years, a lot of them don't accept that view anymore. But the common saying for years was that Rome was the prostitutes that had more prostitutes than any other city in the world because of they had the most celibates. Sad. And they even started taxing the mistresses that were kept by the priests in the 15th century. Interesting, I'm just giving you interesting facts that I read. Now, there was a historian called Will Durant, and I'll put that in the chat if you can read it in the chat. He said the following. Again, I also put the link there, the reference. If you want to go and see the reference, it's written by The Story of Civilizations, Will Durant. Just to mention that he was a secular journalist. He wasn't a religious guy, Christian guy. And he wrote from a pure historical point of view. He wrote the following. He said, there were 6,800 registered prostitutes in Rome in 1490, not counting clandestine practitioners in a population of some 90,000. 6,800 in a population of 90,000 people. That's a lot. How can I compare that? Compare that with what city? Harties is about 30,000, but not all inhabitants. Yeah, maybe 3 times. Okay, anyways, you all know that that's a lot. In Venice, the census of 1509 reported 11,654 prostitutes in a population of 300,000. And an enterprising printer published a catalogue of all the principal and most honored courtesans of Venice, their names, the addresses, and the fees that you pay. Interesting. It's interesting today that they make, they call them now sex workers in South Africa, and they're making that legal. Just an interesting observation. Okay, maybe the world is moving back to that. Now Pope Julius II in 1503 to 1513, he was also called the warrior pope and the fearsome pope. I think I've got his picture. Let me see if I've got his picture. Was it this guy? No, it's not him. Sorry, I thought it was him. Let me see if I can get it. It's not working now. Come on. Okay, sorry, my photos don't want to open now. Okay, so Pope Julius II, he was called the warrior pope, also the fearsome pope. And I looked up on Wikipedia, was the most powerful and influential pope. He was the central figure of the high Renaissance. And then they had papal states that were independent, and the office of the papacy continued to be in the political power during the 16th century in Italy. So the state and the church were basically run by the popes. And he actually bought the papacy with a fortune and did not even pretend to be a Christian. He wasn't even a Christian. He didn't even call himself a Christian. And he commissioned, obviously, Raphael Rooms and Michelangelo. This is the guy that told Michelangelo to make those paintings. I actually have got the photos, and I had to censor some of the photos. Let me see if I can. Why is it not working? Why is my? Let me force close, and then I'll open it again. I want to show you this. You'll remember the. Come on. Okay. I think it's this guy. Let's see if I can share that. Got a lot of photos here. Okay, so I think that was the what they call, what do they call it? I've got it, the Sistine Chapel. Yeah, the Sistine Chapel, where Michelangelo painted on the ceiling, if you remember. I've got the picture there, but I've put some censoring on there. So we all know. Let me see, where's that picture? Do I have it? There is the picture. There's the one. I censored it. All know this picture with a finger. Yeah, it's that one. So it's very interesting. I wonder what it really means. Maybe someone online can tell us what it means, but it seems to me like, is it, and look, I was surprised by this guy on the right with all the boys and the women around him naked. And I was wondering if that has something to do with the clergy and how they did things. I don't know. Maybe someone can tell me.
This was supposed to be God reaching to man. So it's Adam on the left and God on the right in the Garden of Eden.
Okay. So
That's what we learned.
why did they picture God with all these naked people, boys and women?
It's supposed to be angels.
Sure. Okay. I don't know. Anyways, let me take it off. It's despicable. The age. No. So Pope Julius II, he was called this fearsome warrior. He's the one. Now Erasmus of Rotterdam is the one who wrote about him, and he said that Pope Julius II was planning to. He said if he gets to heaven and he's denied entry into heaven, he will storm heaven. He was that warrior kind of guy. He's going to storm heaven if he's denied entry. Yeah. So, and he was a notorious womanizer and had many children. I don't know how many. I didn't read up how many. But the Chapel of Sistine stands actually as a monument that displays this mother of harlots. Which is one of the points that Dave Hunt also points out. Now, today, I don't think today is any different. There are gross immorality going on in the Roman going on in the Roman Catholic clergy, and they are not disciplined or excommunicated. That's very interesting. During the history of Catholics, the clergy that where they do all of these bad stuff, evil things, they just are moved from one place to another place, and they proudly call themselves the vicars of Christ, which is very sad. And a lot of the misconduct by the Roman Catholic clergy that was discovered up was covered up for decades, and but now we know it's being exposed. Many victims have come to the front even today. And if you look at the numbers, you'll see that there are billions and billions of dollars being paid by the church just in USA to settle cases, to settle the cases. I think it was in New Mexico in 1993. I actually saw the article and I took a picture of the article. Let me see if I can find it. Where did I take it? It's on. I think it's this one. Yeah, this is the one I've saw. It was in 2011 that this whole thing was exposed. It came out, and then later on, let me see if I can open that one. Yes, okay. I want to show you this one. I don't know if you heard the story before, if you've maybe read it during that time, but it was a big exposure that happened in the Franciscans that was in New Mexico, where there was a seminary for boys, and I think about 34. It says here 34 boys in California were sexually abused by friars during the nude games at a seminary, and eventually 2013 it was closed down, if I'm correct. Yeah, let me check my notes here, see when was it closed. Do I have it? Yeah. Yeah, it was 45 priests were accused of sexual abuse. I think there were over 50 cases opened, civil cases or cases opened, and 200 people over 30 years came forward that were abused. And obviously then later on in 1993, they shut down the whole place. So the unnatural and the unworkable rule of celibacy. Now, I'm not saying celibacy is unbiblical. Paul does say at one stage there's a gift of celibacy, but here popes and priests were forced to take a vow, and in a sense it created a lot of hypocrites, and it also created this whole system of prostitution and there is no doubt in my mind, if I look at this, that Rome is the city which is the mother of harlots. No other city in the world comes close to this. And although Catholicism gives the false idea that they are one in their doctrine and they agree in practice and doctrine, it's far from the truth. You can just watch the news or look up some of the history, you'll see that popes do not agree, and there's so many councils of disagreement. Bishops don't agree on serious issues, and it's an ongoing thing. So this whole idea that they are one in doctrine, one in agreement, one in practice, and all the other churches that are split off from the Catholic Church, the Protestants and the denominations, they're not the true church. It's a complete, it's completely false. So let me just stop there. I know Maria is watching. Maybe she's got more knowledge than I from Maria. Am I on track? Just let me know.
Yes, you are.
Am I on track? Okay.
I'm feeling a bit sick. I'm a bit sick today, so that's why I'm not going to comment.
Oh, same, man. Okay. So
but everything you say so far, I'm aware of.
Okay. So if I say something wrong, please correct me. But otherwise, I'm not going to ask you every time because of you don't feel well. Okay. So
Okay.
let me quickly go to again back to verse 17, verse 5. It says, Revelation 17:5, and on her forehead was written the name of mystery Babylon, the great mother of prostitutes and of earth's abominations. Now, the word abomination has to do with idolatry. Okay, you find that in Ezekiel 16, verse 36. I'll put it on the white screen. Let me put it on the whiteboard. Okay, Ezekiel 16:36 says, thus says the Lord God, because your lust was poured out and your nakedness uncovered in your whorings with your lovers and with all your abominable idols, and because of the blood of your children that you gave to them. Okay, so I didn't go into the detail of this text, but it's not talking about lust and poured out and nakedness specifically. It's about occultism. Actually, that is what occultism does. If you understand occult practices, that is what happens. It's idol worshipping, abominable idol worshipping, and they also spill the blood of children. They spill, and there's a lot of prostitution also involved with these kind of things. So these evil practices, they were rooted in Babel. They were rooted in that time. And I do think it's going to, again, under the Antichrist rule, it's going to characterize the world religion, which the woman on the beast represents. Okay? So in the Catholic churches around the world today, it's full of idols. I don't know if you've noticed, I've got some pictures. People bow before images of saints, and often they bow before Mary. So I've got the pictures there. Let me see if I can get that. This is actually despicable. I can't actually look at it too long. Let me just rattle you up or show you. I mean, this is the Pope kissing an idol, a baby Jesus. I don't know. This is one of the pictures. There's another one. If you know Catholicism, people bowing before Mary. That's a image of Mary. There is the Pope. I think that was John Paul, bowing before Mary. And there's children are taught to kiss images of Jesus and of saints. There's a little child being forced to kiss that image of Mary and Jesus. Another one, this is an Orthodox, what do they call it? Eastern Catholic Church, I'm not sure. They also kiss an image of Mary. So this is common practice. Mary, Maria, sorry, Maria, ek sien jou hand is op. Your hand is up. Maria. Is your hand up to say something, or is it just agreeing?
What we grew up on. My childhood consisted of all of this. Wow. And they also kiss the cross. They kiss the Pope's hand. Mm. It's all kinds of things.
Okay. I actually saw a lot of that pictures, but I obviously didn't put it up. But yeah, it's so sad to look at this. I didn't know it was so bad. So when I started reading the history and going through all of this, it's really bad. And I don't think people really know all of this, the truth. So I want to ask you this: did you know that Catholic catechism, is that catechism, the second commandment, and I actually looked it up. I went to see what the Catholic Church says about the second commandment. Now, who knows what the second commandment says in our Bible? We can say it quickly. Wie wil vinnig sê? Quickly. Do you know the 10 commandments? The second one.
Is that not the one that says you shall have no other gods before me?
And you shall not make an image of God and bow before. Yeah, you shouldn't make any idol of that. Now, I checked, and I didn't know that, but Catholicism left that out. They left it out. No, they've got 10 commandments, but their second commandment says, it simply, I put it down here, it says, where did I put it? Him only shall ye serve. That's what it says. So they took out the whole graven image, because the second commandment, according to the Bible, says you should not make any graven image of any likeness or anything that is in heaven above or that is in the earth beneath. That's what the second commandment says. They completely have left it out. Instead, they simply say, him only shall ye serve. I was surprised when I read it. I'm not sure, Maria, if that was true. You can just maybe give me a thumbs up maybe. But they actually reject that command that says you shouldn't make images and bow before it. Now, if you confront a Catholic today about this and you talk about this, they shouldn't worship an image, they will say, no, we completely agree. You don't worship an image. They say we just revere them. Okay? So the fact is, Christians never used images until Constantine became the de facto head of the church. They never used, there's no history about Christians ever using images and as the Catholic Church does. Maria?
Actually, the answer to the issue of Mary is that they pray through Mary to Jesus.
Yeah.
Because she pleads our case
Before
and in front of him. Yeah.
So she's kind of co-redemptress.
So I suppose that is revere. Yeah. Co-redemptress.
So even them bowing before these images of Mary and the saints and kissing all these things, they don't say they're not worshiping it, they're just revering it. But I actually read, and I didn't put the quotes down and stuff, I read of some of, I think it was John Paul II, I'm not sure if I've got the quote, if I get to it, I'll read it, which actually said that the actual presence of that saints come into the image. And he said that in a statement somewhere. So, yeah, so let me not blame him for something if maybe he's not the one saying it. But anyways, so I've got the quote. Here's the quote. I'm going to put the quote on the screen. Yes, Greg, you can ask first.
Just explain that a little bit more, that the saint's presence goes into the image or the idol. What does it work?
Okay. Yes, I'm referring to a quote of John Paul II. Now, we all know John Paul II. So I'm not sure if all Catholics believe this, but this is what he said. And I've got the quote here. John Paul II, this is now a few years ago, 90s, early 20, wanneer was hy dood? Anyways, he said, a mysterious presence of the transcended prototype seems as it were to be transferred to the sacred image. The devout contemplation of such an image thus appears as a real and concrete path of purification of the soul of the believer, because the image itself, blessed by the priest, can, in a certain sense, by analogy with the sacraments, actually be considered a channel of divine grace. Okay, now that's, to me, that's heresy. That is complete false because there's only one way we receive grace, and that is through the blood of Jesus Christ that died for us on the cross and by faith. There's only one means to receive grace, and it's through faith in Christ. Now, obviously, the Catholic Church believe there are other channels of grace through the Mass and through all the sacraments and through all the images, which is obviously completely not true. Okay, so let me continue. Images. Yeah. Now you know what you know why I cannot call, and I've said this before when we spoke about the ecumenical movement, why I personally cannot call the Catholic Church a Christian church. I'm talking about the system, not talking about individuals who might actually be saved, but I don't think they will stay in that system because it's a system of harlotry and idolatry. It's a system that a true Christian cannot just continue in. So a great abomination is when the Roman Catholic Church sold salvation also to people and enriched themselves. So this is a very interesting topic to go into, where Christ offered himself as a free gift. Salvation is free. The Catholic Church sold salvation specifically during the Middle Ages, okay? And I'm not sure if they still practice it, but it's still in their indulgences, is still in their doctrines or catechism. It's still there, where a church are allowed to do it for maybe other reasons, I don't know. But they never in history ever repented of this evil practice during the Middle Ages. Now, interesting, Pope Leo X, I've got a picture of him. Hopefully I've got the right one. Let me see. Let me see. This is Pope Leo X. Very confusing. Okay. Pope Leo X. Okay, actually I have that Girolamos picture on here. It's this guy. It is this guy. Okay, here's Pope Leo X. I've got his picture on here. Okay, so Pope Leo X. This is the guy. Anyways, let me tell you a little about him. He was during 1513 to 21. That's about 8 years that he was the Pope. He was the one that cursed Martin Luther and excommunicated him from the Roman Catholic Church. Now, Pope Leo X sold forgiveness of sins, okay? So if you murdered someone, you could go to him, pay him something, and he would pardon you. And then if a deacon guilty of murder paid for this sin, it would cost him 20 crowns. Now, I've got no idea what it's worth today, crowns today, but when the anointed malefactors were pardoned from this crime, civil authorities could do nothing to prosecute this person. So if the Pope says, you are clean, your sins have been forgiven, you are pardoned, then he could not be prosecuted in a civil court. And the more Catholics sinned, the wealthier the church became. So interesting. Now, Pope Leo X, this guy, he also built St. Peter Basilica, the Vatican City, in Vatican City. Now, Catholics believe this is the place. I've got the picture on there. Let me quickly see if I can get it. That's it. That's the picture I found online. It's St. Peter's Basilica, and they believe this is the place where the Apostle Peter was buried. And how did he pay for this? How did he build this? He built it with the money of people who paid for their sins. That's how he did it. So I think our next building project, every cent you pay, you put that 5 rand in the bottle. You know that story we have. If you swear in the house, you put the 5 rand in the bottle. Not we don't do it because we don't swear. But I know people do that kind of thing. Then we can build a church maybe if you do that a few times a day. Okay, Lizelle wants to say something. Let me give her an opportunity.
I was thinking about that verse that says Jesus that called them out and said, it was actually in Luke chapter 12 from verse 54 that he says, you know how to read the signs of the weather.
Yeah.
You know how to look at the wind and say it's going to rain, it's not going to rain. How is it that you look at these things and you're not able to tell? And that's the thing that kind of comes up. How do people all the years look at these things and they're unable to tell?
Yeah, but because these things are spiritually discerned. I don't know if you all heard what Lizelle was sharing, Luke 12:54, talking about, you know how to predict the weather and all these things, but how is it that you don't discern the times? And exactly, most people are not going to see this coming. They won't, because it's spiritually discerned. The natural person cannot understand these things. So yes, that's also true. Okay, so I think this place, there's this place that I showed you, this St. Peter's Basilica, also stands as a structure of evidence that Rome is the mother of abominations, not only the mother of harlots, but also abominations. Now, Pope Leo X, again, he commissioned Dominican, I don't know how to pronounce that, Friar Tetzel. Now, probably, I don't know if some of you heard Tetzel. I saw the movie of Martin Luther. There was a movie, Luther, a few years ago, 2011, that we saw that. We showed it actually at the church when I was in Rustenburg, where Tetzel had that famous saying, and they were selling indulgences to people to free those in purgatory. So if you have a family member that died and is in purgatory, you can actually pay something and buy him so that he can go to heaven. Now, Tetzel had this famous sales pitch he used, and I don't know if you heard this before. It says, as soon as the coin in the coffer rings, a soul from purgatory springs. So that was Tetzel's famous saying. And I'm putting that in the chat. So, Greg, your hand is up. Question?
Yeah, not really a question. I just wanted to mention, so Lizelle said, how do you not know what's happening in these times? But weren't the general population misled as well, because they weren't educated? They weren't allowed to read the Bible. Back in the Middle Ages, and then it was only the popes that were allowed to read the text, and it was all in Latin, and it wasn't written in the language that the general population was that. So they were completely misled and deceived by the papacy.
Yeah, no, they
Isn't
were.
that so?
No, that's true. That's true.
But today it's different, because we are educated. We have the Bible translated in many languages. So it is up to us to read and study the word itself, so that we don't miss what's happening in the time now.
Yeah, so what I think, if I can add up to what you're saying, as we get as history comes closer to that time where the Antichrist and one world religion and everything moving to that point, we obviously, the church, we believe that we will not be here. But in that time, during the Great Tribulation, there will also be other Christians that are saved during that time, people that come to faith. But when Jesus said in Luke that people will not be able to discern this, it was in the context he was referring to then. He was referring to the end times, where people will see all these things. I mean, for us, we will be, I think, easily. We will say, if there was no rapture, okay, let's say if there were no rapture, we would say, this is the mark of the beast. And we would be easy, we would know, okay? But I think it's gonna be in that time. It's gonna be, people are gonna be deceived in a way that they won't be able to recognize really what's going on.
Ephesians 4 says they are darkened in their understanding.
Yeah. Ephesians 4 says they are darkened in their understanding. So. And this whole thing about Tetzel, who said, as soon as a coin in the coffering, this whole selling of salvation thing, this is what upset Martin Luther in such a way that he wrote that 95 thesis and put it on the door, wanted to debate. And then it sparked this Reformation and the Protestant movement. So this is what happened then. Now, Revelation 17, verse 4, again, if I can quickly read it, says, the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet and adorning with gold and jewels and pearls, holding in her hand a golden cup full of abominations and the impurities of her sexual immorality. And what is interesting is that John is seeing this vision. Now, John couldn't see and predict that it's going to be the Roman Catholic Church or this, and how the church, because now he sees this vision of the church, okay, and which is supposed to be the bride of Christ. That's what he sees. And how did she become this brazen prostitute? And also, how could the church be guilty of the blood of the saints? Because it says she's holding in her hand a golden cup full of the abominations and purities of sexual immorality. Verse 16, if you go to verse 16, it says, and I saw the women drunk with the blood of the saints, the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. Now, John was probably wondering how this could ever be possible. How could those who belong to Christ find themselves in a church that is false and here being pictured as a prostitute? And according to Revelation 18, verse 4, I think I've got let me put that text on the whiteboard. Revelation 18, verse 4. So I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but Revelation 18:4 says, then I heard another voice from heaven saying, come out of her, my people, lest you take part in her sins, lest you share in her plagues. So there are people, according to this text, that belongs to Jesus that are in the church. And he's calling them out of her, lest they take part in her sins and share in her plague. So God is calling to people to come out of the prostitutes and referring to the system. So John probably perplexed by this whole thing, but what's interesting here is that God is not saying, because if you talk, and I've read some of the things I've read, says that there was a pope that says no, they shouldn't leave the Catholic Church. If there are problems, they should try to reform and change the church from inside, and that's the mature thing to do, and things like that. People should stay and not go. But obviously, he's a Catholic priest. But the thing is, God did not say here in Revelation 18 that they should stay and try to reform her. He says, come out of her, not reform her. So I just want to make that point. So I want to talk about drunk with the blood of saints, drunk with the blood of saints. If you go a bit into the history, what this means and what John says, obviously, if we see this woman riding on the beast as let's say the Roman Catholic Church in general, the system, the mother of harlots, the mother of abomination, and we see that, how could she hold a golden cup with the blood of the saints? How did the church martyr the saints of Jesus Christ? If the women, obviously the church persecuted the church, if you can say it this way. That's how she got drunk with the blood of saints. Now, if you go back to the Roman Empire, it's interesting that the early church grew very quickly. The early church under the Roman Empire, under persecution, under martyrdom, the church grew up to a point where it's about 10% of the empire were Christians. And it's true that if you study Christian history, the church history, and I've studied this when I went to the Baptist seminary to do my bridging course to the Baptist church, where you do Baptist history and all those things. It stands out. When the church were under persecution, the church thrived. The church just grew. But as soon as the church gets comfortable and there's no, as Jesus said, the world will hate you, the world will persecute you. It becomes easier. Then the church stagnated and the church didn't grow. And that's what history shows us. Now, Tertullian, I don't know if I pronounced that. He wrote the following. I'll put it on the screen. That is one of the history writers of the early church. And from a Christian perspective. And he wrote this. He said, put it on there. If the Tiber reaches the walls, if the Nile does not rise to the fields, if the sky doesn't move or the earth does, if there is famine, if there is plague, the cry is at once, the Christians to the lions. Interesting. I'm not 100% sure what it means, but it's interesting that Tertullian wrote about this, and he wrote that the church, when they were persecuted, that the church grew, and the church was greatly persecuted, and there's so much history about this in the early years, but this all came to an end. It all came to an end when the church became one with the state. With Constantine, the emperor, the new emperor came on the scene. Constantine gave Christians full rights as citizens, and the freedom, sadly, this freedom set the stage for apostasy that would envelop Christendom for more than a millennium. And that's what we found in history. The church and paganism got mixed up. It got paganized in a sense, in a broader sense. So the church became an evil institution, sitting on power and ruling kings, and the apostasy led to Roman Catholicism, and it still lasts. Obviously, Roman Catholicism still lasts up to today. So I've got a quote again from William Durant. I'm going to put it on the, let me put it on the white screen. I want to read this to you. Now remember, he's not a Christian writer. He's a secular writer. And he writes about, is it fitting? Yeah, it's fitting there. And he writes about this time. He says, paganism survived in the form of ancient rites and customs condoned or accepted and transformed by an often indulgent church. An intimate and trustful worship of saints replaced the cult of pagan gods. Statues of Isis and Horus were named Mary and Jesus. The Roman Lupercalia and the feast of purification of faith to save their lives and possessions was immense. And he says Isis became the feast of nativity. Saturnalia were replaced by Christmas celebration. So don't be surprised that Christmas has its roots in paganism. And it continues and says, an ancient festival of the dead by All Souls Day, rededicated to Christian heroes, incense, lights, flowers, processions, vestments, hymns, which had pleased the people in all the cults, were domesticated and cleansed in the ritual of the church. Soon people and priests would use the sign of the cross as a magic incantation to expel or drive away demons. And then paganism passed like maternal blood into the new religion, and captive Rome captured her conqueror. The world converted Christianity. Now, we all know that's not true Christianity. It's paganized Christianity. And Constantine, I believe, that's just my opinion probably, that Christianity under Constantine was not true Christianity. It was a paganized form of Christianity. So Lisa Marie says, I think what he meant was that with any natural disaster, the Christians were blamed. Yes. Thank you, Lisa. That explains what Tertullian said. Thanks for the explanation there. So William Durant, this secular historian, wrote this during this specific, about this specific time. Now, eventually, politics influenced the Christian life and the doctrine. Now, I'm saying this during the Roman emperor with Constantine, and that's where it's going to move. That's where we are heading towards. So don't be surprised. When the Roman Empire fell, the popes assumed the emperor's role, and now the church became the chief persecutor. And people had no form of freedom of conscience. That was taken away. It's one of the Baptist principles, one of the things we as Baptists believe very strongly in. It's freedom of conscience. You have the right to decide and choose what you believe. No one can force you. Christianity, and we all see this with this pandemic, governments, countries, forcing things upon people, taking away their freedom of conscience and taking their freedom of speech away. And that is not, we shouldn't be surprised it's happening. It's going to happen. Christianity became the state religion. And in the end, they became the persecutor, executing. And I've read so many things in the past on the Inquisitions by the Roman Catholic Church. You can go and read it, where they martyred and killed so many Protestants. We all know how this played out in history with the Protestants. Protestants had no equal rights with Catholics. The Bible was kept away from common people. Greg mentioned that earlier. Only the clergy could read and interpret the Bible. In fact, they called the Bible a very dangerous book. That's why they took it away from the people. And they only read what they wanted to read to the people and give to their interpretation of it. So today, obviously the Vatican today don't enforce this anymore. And they do have statements that give people the freedom, the religious freedom. But I think it's a smokescreen. They never repented from the millions of people that were martyred and massacred for centuries. And still up to this day, not one word of repentance of what they did. And their statement around freedom of conscience, I think, is just a smokescreen, because they declare the truth only. And this is important. If you go to the Roman Catholic Church and they're honest with you, they will say to you that the only truth that exists today is within the Roman Catholic Church. When it comes to religious liberty, they say the following, and I've got a quote here. This comes from one of their statements. Now, I don't have the source on my notes, but this is a statement that they give. It's too big. I'm going to put it in the chat. See if I can put it there. That's not going to go there. I'll put it bits by bits on the white screen. Okay, let's look at this. I see there's a hand. Maria.
Hi.
Yes.
I just want to say all of this still goes on today, and it's very close to my heart, because in my background, most of my family is Catholic, and according to them, because we've changed, we will all be going to hell. So I just wanted to point that out.
Even if they say, we believe in freedom, religious freedom, they say at the same time, we believe that's only one truth inside the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
And if you're not Catholic, you're not safe. So any ecumenical act or venture towards the Protestants or other denominations is a deception, because they're not trying to take hands with other churches saying we believe in the same God, we are the same body, we have the same spirit and things like that. They actually want to lure you into and you must become a Catholic. That's the ultimate goal. So here's the quote. I'm going to give you. This comes from, I think, I didn't put the reference down now, so I can't say where it comes from. Maybe you can copy that and Google it and see if you find it. But it says, we believe that this one true religion continues to exist in the Catholic Church, to which the Lord Jesus entrusted the task of spreading it among all men. So the Catholic Church is the only entity, the only church that are entrusted with the truth, and they're the true religion. That's what they believe. That's what they believe today. So while the religious freedom which men demand in fulfilling their obligation to worship God has to do with freedom from coercion in civil society, it leaves in act the traditional Catholic teaching of the moral duty of individuals and societies towards true religion and the one church of Christ. Guess what is the one church of Christ? Okay, so let me put up the rest of the quote. Okay, it says, throughout the ages, she, referring to the Roman Catholic Church, has preserved and handed on the doctrine which she has received from her master and the apostles. Informing their consciences, the faithful must pay careful attention to the sacred and certain teaching of who? The Catholic Church. For the Catholic Church is by the word of Christ the teacher of truth. So the truth is not sought in the Bible. The truth is sought in the church, the Catholic Church. Basically, that's what they're saying. If you want the truth, you must seek it in the church, not in the Bible. It is her duty to proclaim and teach with authority the truth, which is Christ, and at the same time to declare and confirm by her authority the principles of the moral order which spring from human nature. Okay, so you have freedom to pursue truth, but it only exists not in the Bible. It exists only in the Roman Catholic Church. That's what they say. So in fact, there's, according to them, not real Christian truth and real Christian freedom. So it's just a smokescreen. And let me just bring it back to our text. That is what the Antichrist system and the one world religion is going to look like. He's going to use the church. He's going to use the Roman Catholic Church to his own ends and put his image in the temple, demands people to worship him as God. And at that point, I don't know if you knew this, but Revelation 17:16 says he will turn then upon the woman and he will devour her. He's gonna, the Antichrist devil is not anyone's friend. He's never your friend. He's never gonna give, he's gonna give you what you want, maybe temporarily, and then he's gonna destroy you. And that's gonna happen with the Roman Catholic Church. Let me show you. Revelation 16:17 says, and the 10 horns that you saw, they and the beasts will hate the prostitute. They will make her desolate and naked and devour her flesh and burn her up with fire. That's going to happen. Sure. Yeah. I'm gonna stop there. So if there's any questions, we can continue on and on and on because there's so much information on this. And I would suggest, if you can, get the book of Dave Hunt, Women Rights to Be. He really goes into all the detail of this to explain all the history and how it fits all together. And it helped me a lot to also understand this. So you can go and find that book. So if you're interested to look into all the details. Any questions, any comments?
I'm just glad that I'm not going to be around for this class. It might be interesting to watch from heaven.
I'm also glad, Greg. I'm with you. I'm with you. Cynthia?
So, Rudy, are you saying that the revival of Rome or the return of Rome is going to happen through the Catholic Church?
Yeah. It's already happening. I don't follow the news that much, but if I'm correct, the Pope is already, this Pope, the Pope, what's their name? Benedict, what's their name? The Pope today. Who can tell me? Is his name?
Francis.
Francis, yeah. He is actually pursuing ecumenical ties with other religions. He wants world peace, or does it under that claim. So he's already doing that. I actually saw videos where different religions come together, Hindus, Buddhists, Christians, or Orthodox Greeks, or whatever they call them, and they come and they kiss the Pope's ring. It's ridiculous. That was John Paul II years ago. So that's always been their pursuit, to bring all the Protestants back into Catholicism. That's their pursuit. And the end of her is going to be the beast gonna kill her and devour her, and the kings are gonna destroy her. That's where it's heading. And John?
Yeah, I know that this Pope is extremely active in this ecumenical movement, and there's a fellow you might know him, the 40 Days of Purpose fellow, Rick Warren, is it?
Yeah, I know him. I spoke about him.
He's a good buddy of the Pope, and he is saying the Pope's good, eh? So there are a couple of key, call it modern preachers, who are along with this thing. It's very sad.
Evangelicals. And
Yeah.
and when we spoke about the ecumenical movement in previous studies, I actually referred to some of those evangelicals who signed that they take hands with the Roman Catholic Church. I don't know if you can remember back then when we did it, that there are a few. There are actually not a few, a lot of evangelicals that says no, they also are brothers in Christ. We should accept them. We should take hands with them. Now, I'm not saying that individual persons that are truly born again, that he's not my brother. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that I'm not taking hands with the Catholic Church as a system, as a system that is proven through history and time that they are not truly Christian as a church. They're not Christian church. Although people are saved in God can save anyone anywhere. He can save you. You can practice Hinduism and God decides to interfere with your life and bring you someone that shares the gospel and you get saved. You're not going to stay a Hindu. You're going to become a Christian, a true believer. So it's the same, exactly the same with the Catholic Church. Exactly. Let me say the Roman Catholic Church, because I know some Catholics says, no, we're not Roman Catholic Church. I don't know if that's really an issue, but I don't know. Maybe Maria can correct me. But there are Catholics probably that are sincere, that wants to do the right thing, but God's advice to them is not to try and transform and reform the system. They will never be able to do that. They should come out of her. They should come out of that system, because it's the evil system. That's what it is. And I don't know if we spoke about this. When they do the Mass, it's not the same as communion. It's not the same. Completely different. When they do the Mass, they truly believe they're sacrificing Jesus on the table. They're sacrificing every time they're doing the Mass. They're sacrificing Jesus, as the Old Testament people sacrificed animals for the forgiveness of sins. They truly believe they're doing that all over and over and over again when they sacrifice Jesus. That's what they believe. Maria, am I correct?
Yes, you are. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, you're right, but I see the whole Catholic, Roman Catholic religion as the great deception. I kind of look at it like that, because throughout history, Satan has used Christ and the Bible for his own gain, and he's deceived millions and billions of people. Yeah. And what better way to draw someone out than to use the faith as if you're speaking for God. And people are very susceptible to that. So it's a very sad situation.
As if we are saying the same thing when we talk about Jesus and about God.
Yeah.
Maybe just the lesson that I learned from this also is looking at the Mormon Church. But just for another example, when people talk about Jesus, we should define who we're talking about. Because if you talk to a Mormon and you get those two guys visiting you at your home, or visiting you and asking you questions, talking about sharing with you in the street, they will talk about Jesus and God and the Holy Spirit as if we're talking about the same thing. But when you start defining the terms and start defining, but what are you actually saying, then you'll find out, but they're not talking about the same Jesus. It's a different Jesus. And the New Age movement is that kind of easy way into this one world religion, because the New Age movement sees Jesus as a wonderful prophet, because they call him, they say we're all moving towards that consciousness. We're all going to become like Christ consciousness. And they use terms that are kind of acceptable by many religious groups. And it's very vague definitions. And we should be very careful when we talk about things when we share with someone, when someone talks about God, it doesn't necessarily mean he talks about the same God that you're talking about. So we should be careful about that. Good. So is there no last comment or question or response? Or let me see, Lisa, I think, okay. I don't see any chats. John?
Yeah, I just want to make a comment. I have thoroughly enjoyed this evening's study. And I don't know if I speak for everybody. It has been absolutely interesting, really uplifting. Thanks.
No, it makes the Revelation 17
Yes.
more understandable.
Yeah.
I'll see. I'm reading through the book of Dave Hunt. That's why I'm not taking any credit for most of the detail, but I do go and I fact check what he says. I go to Wikipedia. I go and check out pictures of these popes and things. Let me see if I've got more pictures that I didn't share with you guys. Yeah, I've got, yeah, there's some pictures, but you can always just go and Google the names and the things. Obviously, you don't have my notes and all the names. You'll have to go and listen again. But the fact is, I try to represent the facts as truthful as I can, and give credit to the right person. So Dave Hunt is the one who did most of the research on this. And well, he passed away a few years ago, and I used to listen to him a lot, and he helped me to understand a lot of things that I had questions on. So yeah, so if you can get that book, Women Writes the Beast from Dave Hunt, and you really want to go into all the details, and I think there's so much. So we're scratching the surface. We're just scratching the surface, and the more I go into this, it just goes deeper and deeper, and we don't really know all that's going on. But what we need to know is what the Bible says, and that's important. We don't have to have all the details, but what the Bible teaches, we just stick with that. We stick with the gospel. We teach what the Bible teaches, and whatever comes our way, I think if things become tougher, if it becomes more difficult in the future with governments who are tightening things and making it difficult for churches to speak out what they believe, and we should expect, I would say, an upward growth in the church, because that's what history showed. As soon as the church were under persecution and under difficult times, the church grew. The Baptist history alone, 400 years of history, it's such an interesting history to read about, how the church just grew enormously and how many Baptists were killed by Catholics through the Inquisition. But they just grew. The more they were under pressure, the more they grew. If we see Acts 8, there's another example. When the church dispersed and the people were scattered all over, God did that intentionally, because then the gospel spread. God used that dispersion to spread the gospel and to the known world then. So yeah, interesting stuff to read. Okay, so I see a last chat there. Where does Mary, Mother of Christ, come in? Okay, I didn't go into that. I don't know if I'm going too much. Well, we'll see next week. I'll see if there's anything leading to that discussion. Okay, so if there's no other questions or comments, let's close. It's nice to have Dirk again here on, and he can pray for us. That's why he came, to pray for us. So if you let me